y'all live in Florida, please don't stay. But if you cannot leave, you'll find a shelter that has the highest possible above ground location you can find. Okay,
I
please.
agree with this based on what I discovered recently, and I talked about in this video where I was looking at which planetary aspects were similar in hurricanes Katrina and Helene. And one of the things that I found was that there's an out of bounds moon. So, what's going to happen coming next week is that the moon is going to be out of bounds again. So, when I'm recording this on Saturday night, it's not out of bounds, but on Sunday, the moon's going to go out of bounds again. And the other factors, the North Node in Aries and the malefic in detriment, which is Mars in Cancer, are still going to be in effect. And because this storm is brewing, where again the moon is going to go out of bounds, there's a potential for this to be a very intense storm. Let me show you a little bit what I'm talking about when I'm talking about out of bounds moon. So when we're talking about the out of bounds moon, I'm talking about the declination, which is, think of this scale here. You can see 0 degrees is at the middle, then it goes up to 30, and then minus 30 down here. So think about whenever you look at the globe, 0 here is going to be the equator, and the down here at about 23 and some minutes is going to be the Tropic of Capricorn, and up here is going to be the Tropic of Cancer. And you see these pink bars are where the any planet, if you see the line, so you see this red line here is the track of the moon. So whenever it dips down or goes up into the pink, it is out of bounds. That means it's out of the boundary where the sun goes. Like the sun never goes into these pink areas. And so astrologically, we say that the moon has sort of extraordinary effects when it's outside of the bounds of the sun, and so you can tend to see more extremes. So think about how the moon has an impact on tides and water, and so when you have the moon going this far in down in declination or up in declination, you can imagine that it has more effect on the water on the earth. This is also going to be because we have still Saturn in Pisces in the fourth house of the USA, and Saturn in the fourth house also controls weather. So there's that. Now this is, you see this line here was the day that Helene hit, and you can see that the moon was in the pink area at that time. Now this is for next week. You see right about here on the 9th is when they're talking about Milton hitting the west coast of Florida, and you see with that red line that dips down there in the pink, again, we're talking about the moon being out of bounds. And so my concern is that this is just a pattern. I'm not, I'm not a meteorologist or anything. I just am a pattern recognizer. And so this pattern is similar to the Helene one, except that now the moon is actually going to be in detriment. So this is the chart for the afternoon of October 9th. That's going to be next Wednesday, about when they're expecting landfall for the storm. Now, of course, anything can change, but you see that the moon during that day will go into Capricorn, which is its sign of detriment because it's opposite Cancer. And again, we talked about the malefic Mars being in Cancer. And so they're actually kind of in mutual reception because Mars is the exaltation lord of Capricorn, and the moon is the domicile ruler of Cancer. So, in some effect, so when you think about malefics, I don't want you to think necessarily bad, but what happens with a malefic planet is that they have the ability to more easily bring about unfavorable things. So, when we're going to have the moon in detriment in Capricorn, Mars in detriment in Cancer, and Venus is in detriment in Scorpio. And why that also matters is because I also talked about how the North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. And so you're going to have Venus ruling the South Node, ruling the Sun, which is, pretty much the focus. And then what's going to happen is the moon is going to travel into a square with the sun on that day, in opposition to, or probably within by Thursday, and the opposition to Mars, and then even this square to Chiron. So there'll be a big grand square on that day. So we just know that there's going to be a lot of frustration and friction. And so again, I'm just saying I agree with the advice that if you can prepare, do that, because the moon right now is going out of bounds sort of on a consistent basis, and that brings more intensity to things. I hope that's helpful.